The Middle East has seen wars before: missiles, airstrikes, drone attacks. But there was one night when the entire region came dangerously close to something much bigger. A night when radar screens across the Middle East suddenly lit up. A night when air defense systems were activated across multiple countries at the same time. And a night when hundreds of missiles and drones began moving across the sky. For a few tense hours, military commanders across the region watched the same terrifying possibility unfold: a full-scale regional war. The Middle East has always been one of the most volatile regions on Earth. Powerful countries, rival alliances, and some of the most advanced weapon systems ever created. But what makes this situation so dangerous is how quickly things can escalate. One missile, one miscalculation, one retaliation, and suddenly, an entire region can be pulled into conflict. On that night, the situation unfolded faster than almost anyone expected. Reports began coming in of drones being launched, then cruise missiles, then ballistic missiles. Air defense systems in multiple countries scrambled to respond. Interceptors were fired, fighter jets were launched, and military bases across the region went into high alert. For civilians watching from the ground, it looked like the sky itself had become a battlefield. But what many people didn't realize at that moment was how close the region had come to a much larger disaster. Because if even a few things had gone differently, if certain missiles had hit their targets, if certain defense systems had failed, the consequences could have triggered a chain reaction of retaliation. A chain reaction that could have drawn in some of the most powerful militaries on Earth, including the United States, Israel, Iran, and several Gulf countries. And when multiple powerful militaries begin mobilizing at the same time, the risk of escalation increases dramatically. This is what makes modern warfare so dangerous. It's no longer just about two countries fighting each other. It's about alliances, air defense networks, missile systems, drone swarms, and stealth bombers capable of striking targets thousands of miles away. In today's world, a single night of escalation can bring an entire region to the edge of war. But to understand how the Middle East almost exploded that night, we first need to understand the forces that were already building beneath the surface. Because this crisis did not begin with missiles in the sky. It began years earlier, with growing tensions, secret operations, military buildups, and a dangerous balance of power between rival countries. A balance that had been slowly breaking down, and when that balance finally cracked, the entire world watched as the Middle East moved closer to one of the most dangerous moments in its modern history. But this was only the beginning of the story, because the events that led to that night reveal something even more important: how modern wars actually start, and why the next escalation could be even more dangerous. To understand how the Middle East came so close to exploding that night, we need to look at the tensions that had been building for years. The conflict in this region is not the result of a single event. It is the result of decades of rivalry, alliances, military expansion, and political struggles for influence. Two powers sit at the center of this tension: Iran and Israel. For years, these two countries have viewed each other as major strategic threats. Israel believes Iran's growing missile program and regional influence could threaten its security. Iran, on the other hand, sees Israel and its Western allies as forces trying to limit its power in the region. Because of this rivalry, the Middle East has slowly turned into one of the most heavily militarized regions in the world. Countries across the region have invested billions of dollars into weapon systems, ballistic missiles, drone technology, advanced air defense systems, and some of the most powerful fighter jets ever built. At the same time, global powers have also become deeply involved. The United States maintains military bases across the Middle East. Israel operates one of the most advanced air defense networks in the world, and Gulf countries have purchased large numbers of American and European weapon systems. All of this creates a fragile balance of power, a balance where each country tries to deter the other from launching an attack. This strategy is known as deterrence. The idea is simple. If every side has powerful weapons, no one wants to risk starting a war, but deterrence only works as long as both sides believe the risks are too high. And over the past several years, that balance has been increasingly tested. Drone attacks have become more frequent. Missile strikes have occurred across several countries in the region. Cyber operations and covert missions have also played a role in the growing tensions. Each incident raises the risk of escalation. Each retaliation increases pressure on governments to respond. And slowly, step by step, the situation begins climbing what military strategists call an escalation ladder. At first, the actions are limited: covert operations, targeted strikes, proxy conflicts carried out through allied groups. But as tensions rise, those actions can begin moving closer to direct confrontation. This is where things become dangerous. Because once missiles and drones begin flying across borders, leaders have only minutes to decide how to respond. Air defense systems must quickly determine whether incoming threats are real. Military commanders must decide whether to intercept, retaliate, or escalate further. And sometimes those decisions are made in the middle of the night, under extreme pressure, with incomplete information. On the night the Middle East almost exploded, that escalation ladder suddenly accelerated. Reports began appearing of drones launched toward key targets. Soon after, radar systems began detecting incoming missiles. Air defense networks activated across multiple countries. Fighter jets scrambled from air bases. And suddenly, the entire region found itself watching the sky. Because this was no longer a small confrontation. This was something much bigger. A coordinated wave of drones and missiles moving across one of the most volatile regions on Earth. And what happened next would show just how close the Middle East had come to a massive regional war. But to understand the true scale of what unfolded that night, we need to look at the numbers. Because the weapons launched during those hours were not small in scale, they represented one of the largest aerial attack scenarios the region had ever faced. And the systems used to stop them would soon be pushed to their limits. That's where the real battle began. In the sky above the Middle East. When the first radar alerts appeared that night, military commanders across the region immediately understood something unusual was happening. This wasn't a single missile. It wasn't a small drone strike. The radar signatures suggested something much larger. A coordinated wave of aerial threats moving across the region. Within minutes, multiple military systems began tracking incoming objects. First came the drones. Slow-moving, low-altitude targets designed to travel long distances while avoiding detection. Then came cruise missiles, flying at high speeds and programmed to follow precise routes toward their targets. And finally, the most dangerous threat of all, ballistic missiles. These weapons travel at extremely high speeds and can reach their targets in minutes. When ballistic missiles appear on radar, air defense commanders often have very little time to respond. In many cases, the decision to intercept must be made within seconds. According to defense analysts, large-scale missile and drone barrages are designed to overwhelm air defenses. The strategy is simple. Launch a large number of weapons at the same time, and force the defense systems to intercept as many as possible. Even the most advanced defense systems have limits. They only carry a certain number of interceptor missiles, and if too many threats arrive at once, some may get through. This type of attack is often called saturation warfare. The goal isn't just to launch a few missiles. The goal is to flood the sky with targets. And on that night, the numbers quickly began to climb. Military reports and analysts later suggested that hundreds of drones and missiles may have been launched in the direction of strategic targets across the region. Some estimates suggested that the aerial wave included dozens of ballistic missiles, dozens of cruise missiles, and more than 100 long-range drones. Each of these weapons travels at different speeds and altitudes. That makes defending against them extremely complex. Air defense systems must identify every incoming object, determine whether it is a drone, missile, or aircraft, calculate its trajectory, and then decide which interceptor system should respond. For example, slower drones might be intercepted by fighter jets or short-range air defenses. Cruise missiles may require specialized interceptor missiles. Ballistic missiles, however, often require the most advanced interception systems available. These include high-speed interceptors capable of striking incoming missiles while they are still in flight. In modern warfare, air defense networks are designed as layered systems. Multiple defensive layers protect the same airspace. Some systems intercept threats at long range, others operate at medium range, and some are designed to defend cities and military bases from threats that get through the outer layers. On that night, many of these systems were activated at the same time. Interceptor missiles launched from defense batteries. Fighter jets took off to track aerial targets. Radar stations worked continuously to update the positions of incoming threats. For hours, the sky above the region became a complex battlefield. Drones, missiles, interceptors, and aircraft moving at different speeds across hundreds of miles. But the most important question remained unanswered. Would the defenses hold? Because if even a small number of those missiles reached critical targets, the consequences could trigger a much larger conflict. And as the night continued, military planners knew that something even more dangerous might be coming next. Because in modern warfare, missile attacks are often only the first stage of escalation. The next stage can involve something far more powerful. Strategic air power, and the aircraft designed specifically for missions like this, the stealth bombers. While drones and missiles were crossing the skies that night, military planners across the region were already thinking about the next stage of escalation. Because in modern warfare, missile barrages are rarely the final move. They are often the opening phase. The real strategic power lies in air dominance. Who controls the sky? Controls the battlefield. And that is where fighter jets, interceptors, and stealth bombers enter the equation. Across the Middle East, several countries operate advanced fighter aircraft designed to respond within minutes of incoming threats. When radar systems detected the wave of drones and missiles that night, fighter jets were quickly scrambled from multiple air bases. Their mission was not only to intercept threats, but also to monitor the broader situation in the airspace. Modern fighter jets serve multiple roles during such crises. They can track incoming drones, shoot down cruise missiles, escort interceptor aircraft, and if necessary, prepare for offensive strikes. Aircraft like advanced multi-role fighters are equipped with powerful radar systems capable of tracking targets hundreds of kilometers away. These aircraft can also carry air-to-air missiles designed to destroy drones and cruise missiles mid-air. But even the most advanced fighters cannot intercept every threat. That responsibility falls to ground-based interceptor systems. Modern air defense networks operate in layers. Long-range interceptors attempt to destroy ballistic missiles while they are still high in the atmosphere. Medium-range systems engage cruise missiles and aircraft. Short-range defenses protect cities, bases, and strategic infrastructure. Each layer acts as a backup for the one before it. During large-scale missile attacks, dozens of interceptor missiles may be launched within minutes. Radar stations track incoming objects. Computers calculate interception paths. And interceptor missiles are fired at speeds of several times the speed of sound. When they collide with their targets in the air, the result is often a bright flash in the sky. To civilians watching from the ground, it can look like fireworks. But what they are seeing is a high-speed battle taking place miles above them, a battle between incoming weapons and the systems designed to stop them. Yet there is another layer of military power that remains mostly invisible: stealth aircraft. Stealth technology was developed to allow certain aircraft to avoid detection by radar systems. Instead of reflecting radar waves back to the source, stealth aircraft are designed to scatter those signals away. This reduces the aircraft's radar signature dramatically. One of the most well-known examples of this technology is the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. Unlike fighter jets, the B-2 was designed for long-range strategic missions. It can travel thousands of kilometers without refueling, carry large payloads of precision-guided weapons, and strike heavily defended targets. Because of its stealth design, the aircraft can approach enemy airspace with a reduced chance of being detected by radar. This makes it particularly effective for targeting strategic facilities, such as underground military infrastructure or hardened command centers. In military strategy, aircraft like this are often considered part of the highest level of escalation. They are not typically used in small skirmishes. Their deployment signals something much more serious: the possibility of a major strategic strike. And as tensions rose during that night, defense analysts and military observers began asking an important question. If the situation continued escalating, would air power be the next stage of the conflict? Because if advanced aircraft and strategic bombers were drawn into the confrontation, the crisis would move beyond missiles and drones. It would become something far more dangerous: a full-scale regional air war. As the night continued and interception systems worked to stop incoming drones and missiles, another battle was unfolding far away from the skies. A battle of consequences. Because when a region as strategically important as the Middle East approaches the edge of war, the impact is never limited to just the countries involved. The effects ripple across the entire world. The Middle East sits at the center of one of the most important economic systems on Earth: global energy supply. A large portion of the world's oil and gas passes through this region every day, and when military tensions rise here, global markets react immediately. Within hours of the first reports of missile launches, financial analysts began watching energy markets closely. Even the possibility of a wider conflict can push oil prices higher. Shipping routes may be disrupted. Insurance costs for cargo vessels increase, and governments begin preparing for possible supply shocks. But the economic consequences are only one part of the equation. The strategic consequences may be even more serious. Military analysts from international research institutes have long warned that the Middle East operates like a network of interconnected tensions. A conflict between two countries can quickly draw in others. Regional alliances play a critical role in this dynamic. Several countries maintain security partnerships with major global powers. Some host foreign military bases. Others operate joint air defense systems designed to protect shared airspace. Because of this interconnected network, escalation in one location can trigger reactions across the entire region. Think tanks and strategic research organizations often study these scenarios carefully. Their analysts simulate possible escalation pathways. What happens if missile strikes trigger retaliation? What happens if military bases are targeted? What happens if air power enters the conflict? Each step in the escalation ladder increases the number of actors involved, and once several major militaries begin operating in the same airspace, the risk of miscalculation rises dramatically. History has shown that some wars begin not with deliberate decisions, but with misunderstandings. A radar signal misinterpreted, a defensive interception mistaken for an attack, or a retaliatory strike launched before the full situation is understood. In a region already filled with advanced weapon systems, those risks multiply. Modern military technology moves incredibly fast. Ballistic missiles can travel hundreds of kilometers in minutes. Fighter jets can cross national borders within seconds. And drones can operate quietly for hours before striking their targets. This speed leaves very little time for leaders to make decisions, sometimes only minutes. That is why strategic analysts often describe situations like this as high-risk escalation environments. Once tensions reach a certain point, the situation can become unstable. One unexpected event can push it into a much larger crisis. And on that night, many experts watching the situation realized how close the region had come to crossing that line. Because if the interceptions had failed, if the attacks had caused greater damage, or if retaliation had followed immediately, the Middle East could have entered a far more dangerous phase, a phase where diplomacy becomes harder, military deployments increase, and the chances of a wider regional war grow significantly. For a few tense hours, the world watched carefully, hoping the situation would stabilize, because everyone understood one thing. If the Middle East truly exploded into a major war, the consequences would not stay in the Middle East, they would spread across the entire globe. But the most dangerous part of the crisis was still ahead, because even after the missiles stopped, the tension remained, and the next decision by any side could determine whether the region moved back toward stability or stepped even closer to the edge. As the final interceptor missiles streaked across the night sky and the last drones were tracked on radar, the immediate crisis began to slow down. But the danger had not disappeared. In fact, for many military analysts, the most dangerous part of a crisis often comes after the attacks stop. Because once weapons are launched, governments must decide what happens next. Do they retaliate? Do they escalate? Or do they step back from the edge? Throughout history, some of the most dangerous moments in international politics have happened in these exact situations. Moments when countries stand on the edge of war but still have the choice to pull back. Military strategists sometimes refer to this moment as the brink, a point where one wrong decision could trigger a chain reaction of escalation. And on that night, the Middle East came dangerously close to that brink, because several powerful military forces were already on high alert. Fighter jets remained airborne. Air defense systems stayed active. Naval fleets in nearby waters monitored the situation carefully, and strategic command centers across multiple countries continued analyzing radar data and intelligence reports. Every new signal was evaluated, every movement tracked, because the fear was not only about the attack that had already happened, the fear was about what might happen next. Would there be retaliation? Would new strikes follow? Would additional countries be drawn into the confrontation? In regions with multiple alliances and military partnerships, a single escalation can expand quickly. A defensive response by one country might be viewed as an offensive strike by another, and once retaliation begins, it can become extremely difficult to stop. That is why many global security experts warn that modern conflicts carry an additional risk: system collapse escalation. This is when the complex balance between deterrence, defense systems, and military alliances begins to break down. Instead of preventing conflict, the systems designed to maintain stability begin reacting faster than political leaders can control. Missiles trigger interceptors. Interceptors trigger retaliation warnings. Retaliation warnings trigger military mobilizations. And suddenly, events begin moving faster than diplomacy. The Middle East has experienced many tense moments throughout its history, but that night reminded the world just how fragile stability in the region can be. For several hours, the skies above the region became a battlefield of technology. Drones, missiles, interceptors, and fighter aircraft all moving at incredible speeds. Yet the most important battle was not fought in the air. It was fought in decision rooms, where leaders had to decide whether the situation would escalate further or stop where it was. For now, the region stepped back from the edge. But the underlying tensions have not disappeared. Missile programs continue to grow. Drone technology is becoming cheaper and more widespread. Air defense systems are evolving, and military alliances remain locked in strategic competition. All of these factors mean that the next crisis could unfold even faster, and perhaps even more dangerously. Because in the modern world, conflicts no longer take weeks or months to escalate. They can unfold in a single night, a night when radar screens light up, when the sky fills with missiles, and when entire regions hold their breath, waiting to see whether war will begin. That night, the Middle East almost exploded. The question many experts are asking now is simple. If tensions continue rising, what will happen the next time? And if you want to understand how modern warfare, missile defense systems, and geopolitical rivalries are shaping the future of global conflict, make sure to follow the channel. Because in the next video, we'll break down another critical question: how modern wars could unfold in the age of drones, missiles, and stealth aircraft.